a chainsaw?
We need to get out of here. Why are you doing this?
Why does anyone do anything?
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2025 horror film Brute 1976. The film is directed by Marcel Waltz and it stars Adrian McLean, Sarah French, Gigi Gustin, Dazelle Yvette, Adam Buki, Alex Dundas and Robert Felston Jr. Now the film focuses on, as the title suggests, it's set in the 70s, 1976, and there's a group of people in the desert. They've gone out there in like a camper van to do a photo shoot, and they stumble upon an abandoned town. Now, in this abandoned town, they soon realise that they're not alone, and there's a family of masked homicidal maniacs who've taken claim of that land, and anybody that crosses their paths wishes they hadn't. Right, what are my thoughts on Brute 1976? Well, this film is not subtle in its influences. Obviously, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Hills Have Eyes, that kind of thing. I mean, they're even in a camper van that looks very similar to the camper van in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It tries to be a bit clever and meta about it. You know, you've got one of the characters when they turn up at this abandoned mine, turning around saying, "Oh, we're definitely all going to die," sort of thing, or "One of us is going to die," sort of thing. You know, it's not subtle really in its influences. But that being said, we have quite a competently made film here. It's very bright. It looks pretty in that sense. The cast are all decent. You know, they all do a good job. Some of them feel a bit like caricatures of real people. There's like a layer of humour that some of them have that doesn't sit well with the movie, if you like. It's not horror comedy or anything like that, but like I say, there's a layer of humour here and there that it seems a little bit out of place. It's almost like it's trying to be a satire at times of those aforementioned movies, you know, from the 70s, those classics like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, etc. So it is really, I mean, once it kind of kicks off, you know, with its main theme of, you know, hunting down this group of people within this small mining town, it's fun. It's what you expect the film to be. You know, you've got people in scary looking masks with axes, chainsaws, and a whole other array of like weapons, hunting them down and killing them, taking them out in increasingly violent ways. There's definitely one way that will make most men watch this cringe, very much so. You know, there's others where, you know, people's intestines and stuff are being messed about with, and it's graphic. It does what it sets out to do. You know what I mean? It's violent, it's graphic, it's all of those things. But the one thing it isn't is I don't know, creative and intelligent, I suppose. It just feels like a pale imitator of better films. There's no social commentary or anything like that. I'm not saying films like this need it, but it just is people running and screaming and being chased by people with axes and chainsaws, and the characters themselves aren't particularly well fleshed out or given a great deal of, you know, interesting dialogue. You know, a couple of them, they try and make them interested in each other, like romantically. A couple of the others, you know, it's one of those films where you wouldn't be able to recount the person's name after they've died. And I always see that as a bad sign, really. If you're really wanting to make a memorable horror film, make the characters memorable, so therefore when they are disposed of, killed in these creative ways in horror films, you feel a sense of loss. And you don't really get that here. I'm trying to think. Is there any? No. There's one maybe. But it's more not necessarily that you know the character, but it's quite sad, the death, I suppose. It tries to throw a couple of twists in for you, the film. It doesn't add a great deal, if I'm being honest. You know, it's not one of those twists where you'll be like, your jaw will hit the floor and you're like, sort of thing. One of them is not really a surprise, and the other one you don't see coming, I suppose, but at the same time, you're not really that fussed either. Because again, you're not that invested in the film and the characters. You know, you kind of just get to the point where you accept what you're watching, accept that these people are madmen in masks. These people are the ones that are being killed and hunted. There you go. Enjoy the film, sort of thing. Don't expect a great deal else, because you're not going to get it. So it's competent, you know. I mean, it definitely feels like it's from the 70s, which I'll definitely give it that. You know, the production design and the costumes and all that kind of stuff feels on point here. It feels like a secluded location out in the desert. It feels like the kind of place you wouldn't want to get lost at. So, I mean, it gets some aspects right, it gets some aspects wrong, and it kind of meets in the middle in regards to you as an audience member. It's neither good or bad, if you like. It's not one of those that you kind of like rolling your eyes and like, oh, this is really poor. But also at the same time, it's not one of those films where you sat there, you know, thinking, oh, I've found a little bit of a gem here. It's just right down the middle, which is why I've given it the score I've given. So Brute 1976, you know, if you're really into those period pieces in regards to horror, and ones that are tipping their hats to Texas Chainsaw Massacre and things like that, then, you know, you might find something here to enjoy. As I've said, it's not a bad film, but it certainly won't leave a lasting impression on you either. So that's my thoughts on Brute 1976. Let me know your thoughts if you've seen the film, and I will, of course, be back with plenty more content on the channel very, very soon.